An update into the tragic case of 4-year-old Megan Khung, who died 5 years ago from child abuse. A review panel looking into the circumstances of her death has now found multiple gaps in how various agencies handled the child's case. It found shortcomings in several processes, dating back to when Megan's situation first came to light, all the way to when she disappeared. 3 people have either been disciplined or are being investigated. The panel has also set out recommendations, including making sure child protection services are adequately resourced. The government and agencies involved accepted the findings and the recommendations. Social and Family Development Minister Massaga Zulkifli spoke to the media after the report was released.
As the lead for the national child protection ecosystem, I would like to say that we are sorry for the outcome and acknowledge that more could have been done when we handled the case. We cannot eradicate every risk of a child loss, but our resolve is absolute. We will do everything possible to prevent the recurrence of such tragedies.
An incomplete injury report, calls for help unrecorded, and failing to follow up on locating a missing child. These are some of the shortcomings highlighted by the review panel on Megan Khung's case. They were drawn across 3 significant periods, beginning when the girl's injuries were first spotted, through her disappearance and her death. Chloe Teo reports.
On 19th March 2019, teachers at Megan's preschool spotted injuries on the 4-year-old and alerted community workers at its affiliated social service agency, Beyond Social Services. A temporary care plan was put into action on the same day for Megan to stay overnight with her grandmother. But the incident report was sent to the Early Childhood Development Agency, or ECDA, more than 2 weeks later, as the preschool principal was on overseas leave. Megan's teacher had highlighted 16 injuries on the girl, but the report submitted to ECDA listed briefly bruises on her face, arms, thighs, feet, and back. The report also characterized the injuries as due to excessive physical punishment. The social worker also heard that Megan's mother and her boyfriend were abusing drugs, but did not include it in the report as she could not verify this. The review panel found that the incident report should have been more timely and detailed in describing Megan's injuries. If that were done, it would likely have raised the level of suspicion and prompted ECDA to escalate the case to Child Protection Services.
Beyond Social Services accepts the panel's findings. Our incident report should have been more timely and complete. And for this, we are deeply sorry. Yes, we have made changes to how we work, but the truth is, we will always carry with us the weight of knowing we should have done better.
By early September 2019, Megan stopped showing up at school. Megan's grandmother said the girl was staying with her mother, a breach of the temporary care plan. BSS claimed it called MSF's Child Protective Service, or CPS, twice about Megan shortly after. This information was not revealed in MSF's initial report in April earlier this year, as the officer who took the call did not log it. Acting on the April report, BSS tracked down one of these calls. CPS eventually found the transcript, which showed that the breach of the temporary care plan and further details of the abuse were not mentioned. The call ended with the CPS officer advising Megan's grandmother to file a police report. A subsequent call was made by BSS in the same month, but this call was also not logged and could not be found. The panel found that if the call to CPS had been logged, the case would have been discussed with the supervisor per protocol. This might have resulted in the case being followed up on.
We agree that we could have probed further into the risk level for the case. In addition, CPS had an established protocol for calls to be registered. However, this was not done for the call BSS made. CPS takes a serious view of this matter, and an internal disciplinary inquiry has been convened. We have made changes over the past 5 years to strengthen the system. but we acknowledge the areas we could have done better and will continue to improve and strengthen safe practices, interagency coordination and collaboration.
In late September 2019, BSS called Faya, a child protection specialist centre, for help on the case. Faya proposed that BSS set up a meeting with Megan's family. When Megan could not be traced, Faya said that it could only help once contact was made with Megan's mother. It did not follow up on the case thereafter. The panel concluded that Faya should have treated the call and follow-up email by BSS as a referral to take the case. At this point, with Megan still missing, BSS advised her grandmother to lodge a police report. But she was hesitant to do so, as she did not want to further damage relations with Megan's mother. The panel found that throughout the case, there was a recurring misunderstanding that only family members could file a police report. After this point, the 42-page report by the review panel detailed efforts by BSS to locate Megan, but the efforts were futile. The case picked up again in January 2020, around 5 months after Megan was last seen. A social worker eventually accompanied Megan's grandmother to lodge a police report. The investigating officer assessed the matter to be a case of child discipline with low safety concern. A police supervisor intended to discuss the case further the next day, but did not, because the investigating officer had agreed to trace Megan's mother. The officer tried to do so for about 2 weeks, but stopped after being redeployed for COVID-19 related duties. The panel concluded that the police officers did not follow protocol when the first missing child report was lodged. This resulted in delayed intervention.
The SPF has reviewed the actions undertaken by the investigation officer and the supervisor who had handled the first police report, and they have been disciplined internally. The SPF has processes and systems in place to ensure that the reports receive the right level of attention based on the facts and circumstances of each case and are followed up promptly.
In light of the gaps, the review panel has proposed several measures to improve processes within the sector. This includes adequate resourcing, clearer reporting lines, and safer culture to encourage reporting of incidents. These aim to build on changes that have been implemented since 2020. Now, the panel proposes that all cases of child abuse should now be handled by child protection case management agencies, and these include family service centres and child protection specialist centres. Other community agencies will then focus on detecting and reporting accordingly. The panel acknowledged that this move could lead to an increase in caseload, and the sector must in turn address its resourcing issues. An independent review process should be established to address cases when there are differing assessments by the Child Protection Case Management Agency and MSF's Protective Service. These triage decisions must also be recorded and audited to ensure consistency. Now, the line of reporting for preschools should be simplified so that staff report incidents directly to the National Anti-Violence and Sexual Harassment Helpline. ECDA licensing officers currently function as middlemen who assess reports by preschools for further escalation. And the public must be aware that anyone is able to lodge a police report for a missing child and not just family members. Social service professionals should also be clear that they have a duty to directly report these cases to the police, even if family members are unwilling to do so. Lessons learned from critical incidents like Megan's death should be routinely shared across the sector to improve practices. And these takeaways can also be incorporated into the training content for practitioners. The panel says professionals who work with children should be familiar with processes on reporting and escalation. Relevant training is available. And the panel is also calling for a safe and supportive work environment for practitioners, especially for those working on emotionally demanding cases.
As a review panel, we really wanted to ask ourselves, how can we as a sector come together from this incident so that every child can be protected, so that as an entire sector we can learn and also to support families in that process.
So what do these recommendations mean for child protection services? For more, we're speaking next to Ms. Pang Kee Tai, who is Deputy CEO at PAVE, an independent child protection service. Kee Tai, thanks for coming into the studio today.
My pleasure.
Now, first of all, let's start with what are some of the biggest lessons after listening to all the details of that case and the recommendations? What have we learned when it comes to child protection?
That's right. I think one of the biggest lessons we learned is that this death could have been preventable. Every child death need not happen if we put the right structures in place, people see the seriousness of reporting and being able to speak the same language, because if we have a common language, this is considered as serious and we need to flag this up, we need to escalate this to a party, so that, actions can be taken faster, then it could have been preventable.
Now, one of the recommendations is that all child abuse cases will be managed by case management agencies. And then also the community partners will then focus more on detection and also reporting.
Right.
What do you make of this division of duties? Does it make sense, given what you know about the whole process?
I mean, rather than say that it's a division of duties, it's more like, we're part of all that operation line, isn't it? That first is detection, reporting. And for sure, we have agencies in the community that are not providing psychosocial services. So the preschools, the schools, RCs, doctors in the GPs, polyclinics, they are touch points. They're good first touch points to be able to pick up, to detect, and to be able to flag it up and report so that another group of people can take over. And this child protection work is really quite difficult. Yeah, it takes a special something to be able to work with screaming screaming parents. Sometimes they don't like it. I mean, of course, who likes to be visited by outsiders, government officials, social workers, police, and all that. They want to protect what they think is their own turf. But then when a child's life is at stake, when something like a child's safety is compromised, then we have to step in, right? There's no choice. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes even at the expense of an increased caseload, because one of the recommendations also noted that the process could increase the caseload on workers in various agencies. So is the sector really ready for this? And how do you think going forward you would cope in this sense?
Yeah. And seriously, this whole review panel, right, is really to look at where the wrongs were done so that we can right it. And if we were afraid of increased caseload, then this wouldn't have been done seriously. And we should. In fact, one of the expected outcomes should be that people now know better to report early, to make sure that, they start citing children in the community. Because, I mean, like in Megan's situation, she was not living in isolation. Yeah, there's a whole community out there who could have kept an eye on her. So I think it's important for us and for the society at large to be able to say, oh, now I know better. Yeah, I think maybe just to err on the side of caution, let me just raise it to somebody, that I'm concerned. I've seen this child like that. I mean, better to do that and then at least let the police investigate or the CPS investigate.
Yeah, and to that point, let's talk a bit about strengthening early detection.
Right.
What role do you think child protection practitioners can play, especially when it comes to strengthening that early detections? Perhaps families might be a bit resistant, as you mentioned earlier. There might be some pushback.
Right.
How would you overcome that challenge?
Right. Okay, I mean, families, we've seen a whole range of families, right, in our work. On the one end, you have families who really struggle very hard in their lives. And sometimes when they hurt their children, it's very unintentional. And if they wake up to the idea that, maybe that was wrong and I need help, then good. That can be done. But where families find that, it's very intrusive for outsiders to come and I'm afraid of consequences and all that, that is to be expected. And that's really part of our job, right, the specialist job, to go in and say, look, you need to cooperate, because the whole idea is that if you are struggling with something, let people come in and support you. But if they are willfully hurting their children over and over, systematically over, like in Megan's situation, over a year, then, consequences have to come in. And we have to say things like, if you don't cooperate with us and we can't do any more, and this child's life is now at stake, or things, although we suspect that there are reasonable grounds for us to say alternative care may be necessary and all that, then we will say that, we have to bring this up to the Child Protective Services, the police and all that. And sometimes we've had to do that. Even if they fight and kick and scream and shout, it's something we have to do for the child's sake, because the child doesn't have the voice to do so.
Yeah. Another obstacle to the safety of children is what the report raised about the fact that there might be gaps of information between the agencies. How do you think the situation can be changed and improved?
Gaps. Okay. It's been 5 years since Megan passed on, right, in such a horrible way. And since then, a lot of things have been put in place. There's a lot more public education. There's the screening guides and all that have been put in place. People need to use it more systematically. And there's a lot more, even a change in law to ensure that, the people are empowered to step in, interview when, say, for example, the family doesn't want us to visit the house. We are empowered to be able to go in and interview or to do something about it. Right? I think it's that we have to be cognizant of the fact that, we can look at the past, but seriously, the future is very, very important. Because right now, even as we're talking, some child out there may be suffering. So we have to make sure that whatever has been put in place in these 5 years is going to work and continue to work for more sustainable outcomes.
Yeah, and also people taking more ownership of these situations and proactively, again, everyone can make a police report. We don't have to wait for someone else or an agency to do it.
Anonymous some more. We can even do online reporting.
Yeah. Right. So moving forward, before we go as well, what is one change you think if you could make in this situation that would really help to improve the protection of vulnerable children?
I think it's the whole idea of a mindset change, because the policies are in place, standards are in place, a lot of things are in place. But if people still have the idea that, this is excessive discipline, this is just parents punishing their children and, don't just mind your own business, then that change will not happen. As a sector, as a professional group of people, we need to be able to look at the fact that, a lot of things have happened in the past, and it is our job, our duty to ensure that we are able to put the right steps in place. Must not be afraid of heavy caseload or the resourcing and all that. I mean, this is what we came into the profession for. And somebody out there, we don't need another Megan to die. It's a fact that, there may be more deaths in the future. We don't know. But if the steps are in place, they minimize the harm, will prevent a lot more losses.
And also the community can come in to support the situation as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Kee Tai, and sharing your insights with us. I've been chatting with Pang Kee Tai, who is Deputy CEO at PAVE Integrated Services.